Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Spiritual Handyman. And we are putting spiritual tools into the hands of the people that need them. Today, we are talking to Sandra Biskind, and she is the co-author of Codebreaker. And she's going to be helping us understand tools in our lives that we can unlock the potential and the best of who we are almost instantaneously, quite frankly. It's a pretty amazing concept. So she will be coming on here in just a second. Remind everybody out there that you can catch the Spiritual Handyman free on YouTube. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, you can go to thespiritualhandyman.com and catch all the episodes, including the podcasts. If you prefer to listen to the audio only, it is available there. If you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor at thespiritualhandyman.com, you can just click on those links. And if you want to support the show by donating, those links are available there as well. So let's get to the goods today. And Sandra, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I am Sandra Biskind, and I am actually thrilled to be on the Spiritual Handyman show. By the way, I do love the name, and I really love your energy too. It's just straight off.
Thank you.
I think for me, the important thing is to let people know that I had a very unusual childhood, and that was like 60 plus years ago. And it was, from the age of 3, I understood that I could converse with divine beings, that I was very clairvoyant, and that I knew things were going to happen before they happened. And I could see people who were no longer with us. So there was a part of me that I have learned since then that I've simply come here to experience being a high frequency conduit for all energy. And that's what's so exciting about the work that I do. And the real turning point for me was at the age of 18 when I went through my first awakening experience or enlightenment experience when I was dying. And at that time, I felt an incredible amount of peace, which I realized was humanity's natural state, was peace. And I felt love like I had never felt before. Not love as an emotion, but love as the most powerful energy in the cosmos. I was it, you were it, all life was just simply love. And I was aware of what was going on in the hospital room, the doctors, the nurses, my parents, and I trusted in the whole process. It was like, okay, I was just so confident of whatever was happening for the highest and best good for me. And there was an integrity to it. I felt whole. I felt whole and complete. And I was completely neutral. Now, that's a state that most people don't know. So that's a state where nothing can push your buttons. And honestly, not even my mum sobbing or the surgeon saying, I don't want to cut open your beautiful 18-year-old stomach. Nothing pushed my buttons. And I was in a complete place of unity or oneness where I knew there was no other. There was only one divine perfect being, and it was me, and it was you, and it was God, and it was all life. And I was completely mindful of what I was going through on the inside, and it was just this beautiful, beautiful thing. There was no self-criticism, no fear, no nothing. And it was at that time that I understood that enlightenment was the only thing that was going to stop suffering and bring us joy and happiness and the life we wanted. And of course, what I've just described to you is when you break it down, it spells platinum: peace, love, awareness, trust, integrity, neutrality, unity, and mindfulness. And that was the first time that this password was encoded for me, that I understood I had just cracked the code for enlightenment. And then it was 20 plus years later, not that long. Oh, God, it was. Sorry, when I met my husband. You get to this age and the decades kind of merge into each other. So when I met Daniel, and his mission and purpose in life from a young boy was to set people free. And in order to do that, both of us knew we had to set ourselves free. So for decades, we diligently worked with spiritual masters, gurus, rishis, saints, successful people all over the world. And so that we would embody that ourselves and become that. And so our work is really about empowering people to raise their frequency so they can show up as the best version of who they are, free from the unconscious programs that are stopping all of us from having the happiness and success we have come here to experience. That's another subject, right? So when we decided to write Codebreaker, discover the password to unlock the best version of you, we started writing down the chapter headings. And when we had written the headings down, we looked at it and we went, hang on, doesn't that spell platinum? And there it was again. And a friend of ours said, you know what? Platinum's just been out there in the ether waiting to come down and dance with the world. And so that's the password that will crack the code for you to have these enlightenment and whole experiences and to actually experience yourself as the truth, which is you are a perfect divine being. There's nothing you have to get, give, or do to be that, because you are already that on an energetic level. And so without having to die or near death, without having to have a huge car accident or, end up in jail or meditate for 40 years in a cave or on a mountaintop, you can now use this system so that you can experience these states. And once you do, you're completely aligned on a frequency level, like you're harmonizing with what you want in your life. And by the way, without that, you don't get what you want in your life. You just get what you think you want on an unconscious level.
Wow, that was a lot of information and a great share. Thank you so much for taking us on that part of your journey. What really stood out to me there was that moment of neutrality, and how that is, that was kind of it was almost the calm that everything was born from, right? Exactly. And you said something really interesting that I'd love for you to expand on. Then you touched on it again about the high frequency and how you personally, Sandra, are a conduit for the higher frequency. Can you explain that a little better for us?
Yeah, sure. Because I have dedicated my life to living as the best version of me and living with this platinum system. And I do what it takes. I'm diligent. I know that I am here as a conduit to help people experience themselves in reality as this high frequency energy being that they are. Because if you think about it, when scientists tell us, even when we're just an embryo in the womb, we already have two systems. We have a nervous system and we have an electrical magnetic system, right? Which is a vibration and a frequency. It's that system that dominates us always. And that is because that's who we are. We are actually pure energy vibrating at a frequency that is unfortunately controlled by our thoughts, by the mind. And the mind is not who we are. It's something that gets in the way of us being who we are. And so it's really important to be able to teach this and to be able to put our hands on people's heads and create a brain change, changing brain function. Our intention has to be clear that we are what we are teaching. So if you're working with a spiritual mentor or a teacher of any kind, unless they are living what they are teaching, please don't work with them. That just makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. You have to be what you teach. And so, and people understand this. Like when the first time we went into the Transformational Leadership Council, which is an amazing meetings twice a year of some of the top transformational leaders in this country. And we walked in and we sat down and we had people turning around to look at us. And then in the end, someone came up and said, what's happening? What's going on? And they could feel this energy, this frequency, this unconditional love that we live with and on. And they were like, they're affected by it. And isn't that our job, each and every one of us? Like, if you really think about it, we didn't come here to suffer. Why would you do that? I mean, yeah, Okay, karmically, we've decided we will so that we can grow. But what if you could grow without the suffering? What if you could get off that karmic cartwheel? And you can. It's just you stop believing the ego mind and its thoughts, and you start living the truth of who you are.
And that sounds like the basis for bliss, quite honestly.
You hit the nail on the head.
So how does your system how does your system provoke that in somebody's daily life? How do we put that into, what do we do next? I believe you. What do I do now?
You read the book, because in the book the system is laid out for you, and what it does is it actually shows you how to, and explains and reveals how to master that platinum state of being, but it also reveals how to master the blocking frequencies to it. So, for instance, unforgiveness blocks peace, fear blocks love, worry and anxiety blocks trust, and obviously judgments block unity, and attachment to our stories blocks neutrality. So when you actually get into those places, and we're all in them, oscillate through those low frequency places daily, when you identify which place you're in, you go, wow, this is exciting. I'm just worried and anxious here. Hey, it's time for me to do a U-turn. What do I need to do to get back into that place of trust? And in an instant, using some of these tools, you get back into a place of trust, and you're no longer worried and anxious. And it's like, oh, wow, it is so exciting. I had a cousin of mine call me, and she said, look, the whole family's excited about this trip overseas. I can't stand it. I feel like vomiting, literally vomiting every time I think about getting on that plane. And I said to her, so you actually don't trust that pilot and that airline is going to get you to this destination safely? And there was silence on the other end of the phone, and she said, are you telling me this is a trust issue? And I said, absolutely, it's a trust issue. And I delved into her unconscious, and I found out where it was coming from, what the emotion was, and I neutralized the emotion, so it had no longer had any force to control her. And guess what? She was right back in this place of trust. She could hardly wait to get on the plane, had the best trip of her life. And that's because we were able to identify what was creating the trauma, the pain, the grief, that sickness in her stomach, what was going on. And that's why the system's so exciting, because there are instant shifts that happen.
And to have that kind of immediate effect and shift, that is, it almost kind of hints to the magic pill that is so elusive, and everyone says there isn't one.
I love it. This is, look, honestly, this is the magic pill for neutrality, happiness, joy. And of course, that magnetizes success to you. Because when you're in that place, you are a magnetic attraction to more of what you want. And not only that, you're a magnetic attraction to people. Like, we have people coming out of everywhere wanting to support us and help us and do things with us. And it's because they love being in this energy. They understand it. They want more. And then all of my clients, of course, every one of them, they're transformational leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs. They know there is always another level. And the only thing stopping them to getting from those levels is their unconscious program that is running our show, all of it. They run our business, our love life, everything. And guess what? We don't even know they're there. That's the part, right?
And the unconscious blocks that you refer to in the text, which is an easy read, by the way. You can just learn stuff just reading through the table of contents, and you get a clear view of where you're headed and what you're doing. And then when you start reading it, you pick up so much and you blaze through it so easily. It's almost like a manual you've already read, and it makes perfect sense right away, right? But what you're really doing is targeting the unconscious blocks, looking for a way to get to the things that we don't really activate in our daily lives, right? That we don't recognize, I guess, is a better word. Is that accurate?
You're right. Look, I am not interested in the conscious mind at all. When I do my VIP private sessions, when I work in my live events and online programs, people say, I need to work with this because of this, this, and this. I don't even want to know what their because is, because it's never relevant. It is actually never what they think it is. And it's always something that is hidden beneath, that has happened from, it's been handed down to them from their ancestors, it's been their mum and dad and so forth, it's been brought in from past conditioning, childhood trauma and grief, and it's been brought in from past lives. So what we're doing is, even by the time we're born, we're already 50 to 60% full of these unconscious programs anyway. And that's why children get sick. You know, that's why children can be geniuses, because they've already brought that in with them. And honestly, the unconscious mind is so fascinating to me, and especially because I have the ability to actually, I mean, physicists call this being able to go into the 0 point field of all information. So Lynn McTaggart wrote a fabulous book called The Field. So if you're interested in this subject, please get The Field by Lynn McTaggart. And she's, you know, all of the physicists in that book tell us that we can access the information that we need to access at any time. So let's say I'm working with you and you've got a challenge in your life. I don't want to know about it on a conscious level. I'm just going to go straight into that field and find out whether it happened from your ancestors, your childhood, or a past life. And how that works for me is that that part of you appears to me, physically appears to me, and starts telling me what the event was, how emotional it was, and the decisions that you made. And when I neutralize and delete the emotion, those decisions and emotions no longer can control you, and you're free. So this whole system is about setting you free from your own mind, both conscious and unconscious. Amazing.
Very, very, just mind blown to you. I've read a lot of the words and what you've explained, but hearing the way you say it and the way that it's expressed, it hits infinitely deeper. I'm someone who works with the Akashic records quite a bit and helps people with blocks and restrictions in their current life, but it's more of a conscious, like these are things that they're aware of that are happening. They're not always aware of where the root cause is. And you're going even beyond that, and it almost doesn't matter where the root cause is or whether they're aware of it. You just go, ting.
Right? And you know what, the root cause, what I've found is over these last 4 decades, is that when you get to the root cause, it's then gone for good. If you're only dealing it within on the unconscious, you have a shift, but it's not sustainable. It just keeps, you know, coming up and hitting you in the face again. So we just say, that's why I'm not interested in the conscious mind at all. And there's 3 absolute prerequisites to being able to have the life we want and show up as the best version of who we are. And in the Platinum Life System in Codebreaker, you absolutely get to be living those prerequisites. And one of them is, it's really important that you harmonize or align with the frequency of your choice. So let's say you wanted to manifest the love of your life, pretending that you don't have it. Let's say you did, and you put it up, you put the photo of the beautiful woman up on the board, and you know all the things you might do together, and your conscious mind's going, yep, that's what I want. But your unconscious mind could be saying, who do you think you are? You don't deserve that. And look at that, that will never love me. And so there's a misalignment in what you want and what the mind is saying. Now, the unconscious mind wins every time. So you don't get it. And that's why people get upset about the law of attraction, because they go, it doesn't work. The fact is, it does work, but you absolutely have to dig into what is stopping it from coming to you. Like, what's the misalignment? And then the second thing is neutrality, you know, like you have to get neutral to these programs. Once you do that, there's a sense of freedom and joy where you absolutely are completely aligned and you can manifest what you want. And then the other thing is your state of beingness. So not what you're doing, it's who you're being whilst you're doing what you're doing. And then as you're mastering this Platinum Light system, your state of beingness just changes. It's like you said, you're in this state of awareness and joy, and life changes. And life can change in an instant.
It's true, and it happens in lots of different ways. And most times when we refer to life changing in an instant, it's not necessarily in a positive way. That's the recognition, but it is equally powerful and capable in our lives for it to happen the other way as well. And you're supporting that 100%. And you're even laying out the possibility for us to be able to do it for ourselves. So
Yeah.
here's, I can see that from my perspective here, where the gap is for me is identifying the unconscious piece. Mm-hmm. So can we maybe pick one of the platinum letters that might be a way to demonstrate kind of how we can bridge that gap and create better understanding of what is happening in that unconscious space?
Sure. Let's just say, let's take peace because it's the first one, and it's obviously the one that is the bedrock of it all, right? So if you have a low frequency blocker of unforgiveness going on, you will never ever know peace, ever. And so in the unconscious, you might, like for instance, the ego mind will look at something and look at yourself and go, oh, I forgive you. And it's like really flippant and it's still judgment. But when you delve deep into the truth of what's really going on and you connect with your true self deep within your own heart, then you can forgive and be free to experience peace. Now, in the unconscious, you've got this mind chatter going, well, I am not good enough. The self-criticism, the self-judgment, the mind driving you crazy, and you don't realize that you have to forgive yourself for that, because the more you say it, the more that becomes your reality. So you really have to control that. And then when you're not forgiving someone else, you're actually not forgiving the person. You're forgiving the programs that they're running. But I want to take you beyond that. What about if you're forgiving the script that you have written? Because in reality, we create our universe and we come into form from the electromagnetic energetic field. We come into form as this being, but we have decided what we're going to experience. We have decided what we're going to go through. We've decided everything via our thoughts. So we've decided, well, I think I don't deserve forgiveness. I need to be punished. So, this person can do this, and this. And so when they do it, we forget that we set it up. We forget we gave them the script, and we can't forgive them. And so therefore, we're not going to that next level. We're not revealing the truth of who we are. And that's really talking about personal radical responsibility here, right? It's really saying you do control your life. We're not at the mercy of this body and this mind. We are truly perfect, divine, energetic beings, and we can oscillate at such a high frequency that what we bring in can cancel out anything that we thought we deserved, any punishment, anything, and we can just stop the rot. And so, to go into your unconscious, there's a number of ways of doing it. Inquiry is a fantastic way. I mean, that's when you don't have me present. Inquiry is a fantastic way, right? And I'd love to give you one of the tools. Are we up to that yet?
Yeah. Absolutely. You've been kind of doling them out as we go. So yeah, really? you just continue to go for it, Sandra. It's fabulous.
Thank you. So one of the things that I discovered when I was 27, and I had just left an abusive marriage, had 2 near-death experiences. My 41-year-old mother was killed. I mean, if you can imagine, from 18 to 27, this was a pretty rough time. And at the age of 27, I knew I was in trouble and I needed help. That's, by the way, when I discovered meditation. And it was then that I discovered that I could master my own frequency. And that changed my whole life. So meditation is obviously one of the tools that people have to use. But what happened for me was that one of my staff members, I had a chain of boutiques at that stage. I opened my first fashion boutique, my first business at the age of 20. And one of my staff came to me and said, you know what, we never know what we're going to get with you when you come to work. If you're going to be angry, sad, upset, happy, or a bitch. And I've gone, whoa. I was completely unaware. There was no awareness whatsoever. I was oblivious. That's the frequency blocker to awareness, by the way. I was completely out of awareness on how I was affecting my staff. In fact, how I was affecting anybody. So I was so engrossed in my own pain and trauma. So instead of, this is another tip, instead of going into blaming, justifying or complaining, this is the no BJC rule, by the way. We want you all to get that one. You know, no blaming, complaining or justifying. That adds up to a victim mentality. So instead of going into that and explaining to her what I was going through, every morning I sat in my car before going into one of my businesses, I would take a few deep breaths and I would ask myself 4 questions. And I was digging in to my unconscious, as I was digging into what I really felt and was thinking. It wasn't just this surface stuff, right? And by the time I got to the answer to number 4, I had completely become neutral. I had changed my frequency to such a state that when I walked into my business, my staff wanted me back again. Clients were coming out of everywhere. The business went through the roof. And I actually went from, you know, at almost going under financially at that stage to 3 years later at the age of 30 being a millionaire. And these 4 questions and these tools that we're revealing in Codebreaker are what helped me and my husband go through 2 financial crises where we lost everything and we're able to, with integrity and trust, actually, you know, still have the life that we want to have. So you want the 4 questions?
I can't wait.
Okay.
Yes, please. So does everybody else. Yes, you're wonderful. Thank you.
I was going to give them to you the way it happened because it's more impactful that way. And I said to myself, what am I feeling? And I went, oh, wow, that's an easy one. I was like angry, upset. I felt alone, lonely. I had no support in my life. I was not well, and I did not want to go into my businesses. And then what am I focused on? Well, I was focused on the fact that I had suppliers ringing me every half hour throughout the day in the midst of all of my staff and customers asking me for money that I didn't have. And so in front of everybody, I had to explain to them that I didn't have it, but they would get it when I did. It was a harrowing experience. And then what do I want to feel? I just want to feel great about going back into my businesses again. What focus will serve that? That was the big one. And I really took another deep breath and went, okay, I have to focus on the fact that I am so grateful and love these businesses so much that I was able to create, that I had put together for my staff. I loved and respected my staff, my clients, and even the people who were ringing me asking me for money, my suppliers. And it was like, okay, that was kind of turned me around and went, wow, hang on a minute. Getting me back into a place of gratitude and love for who I was and what I had created, and for everyone else as a part of that creation. And so when I got in to the boutiques, my staff were like, wow. I was kind of walking in like this high frequency light. And when the suppliers rang me, I said, I'll call you back. And so when there was a lull, I would call them back. And I explained very clearly to them that I was in a place of integrity and that I was not spending any money on me whatsoever, except petrol and a little bit of food. And that every cent that I made during that week would be divided up between them. And so every week they would get a check from me. And every one of them could feel the integrity behind that, the frequency behind it. They all trusted me and backed me 100% through that financial crisis. And it was phenomenal. So I've taught people all over the globe these 4 questions, and all of them have the same results. Their staff start to love them again. Their staff start to work for them in a capacity that they weren't working with them before. Everything changes. You want me to reel them off again?
Please. I was trying to run through them in my brain. I definitely got 3 of the 4, but yeah, please repeat them.
When you go through the system here, right, and also in the journal, they're repeated over and over again because they're that important. Right. So, you know, in peace, there's the 4 questions for peace and the 4 questions for love, etc. So, what am I feeling, right? What am I focused on? what do I want to feel, and what focus will serve that. And that's the one where you really have to dig deep. Like if you're out of peace and you get to, what am I feeling? I can feel completely unbalanced, out of whack, I'm not happy. What's my focus? Well, they just said and did this and it's not fair. What do I want to feel? I want to feel at peace again. What focus will serve that? Wow. I have to come to this place of forgiveness of myself for writing the script, for them, for reading it so well, they deserve an Academy Award. This is this place I've got to come to. And with that, there's an instant shift. And if the 4 questions don't work the first time, you just repeat. Yep. Just do them until you get to that point where you've got, yeah, of course, there is nothing to forgive, right? So what am I feeling? What am I focused on? What do I want to feel? What focus will serve that? A recipe for high frequency beingness.
And when you take those 4 and just apply them in the moment, you've got a great recipe to get yourself back to that neutrality. But then when you apply it to the system, to the platinum system, that's when you're getting deeper and digging into the layers of how to have that in all aspects of your life and how to achieve each of those layers and bring that frequency woven together. It's mind-blowing.
You should be we've got a live event coming up in July, for instance. We call it Activate Enlightenment. And during those 3 days, we absolutely train people in the system. And when you watch people live make that shift from where they are when they come in to when they walk out, it is like, wow. People are looking at each other and going, but you look so different. You look so beautiful. It's almost like we have to take before and after photos, because once you've been through a system, and we're starting our online system today, by the way, and then all of these fabulous programs, when you go through the system, and you can do it on your own in the book, when you go through it, you can't help but change. Even if you don't want to, you will. And that's what's exciting about it. I had one guy, Martin Root, who's the founder of Heaven on Earth project. He'd be great on your show, by the way. We sent him the book, and 3 days later he rang up and said, "What's going on? What is this?" He said, "It's not a book." He said, I picked it up and I started reading it, and I thought, well, I do know some of this. And then he said, I felt really high and happy, and I put it down. And, he said, I still felt that way hours later. And he said, you know what? I've been addicted to watching the news, and I no longer feel the need to do that anymore. And that was after him reading the book. So you can see there's going to be little miracles happen for people in very unexpected ways as they go through this very beautiful, graceful, it's a very efficient system. Yeah. I'm so excited because it is our legacy work, and everything we'll be doing now for the last third of our lives will actually be training people in the system and helping people to get clear.
Well, thank you for sharing all that amazing information and making it really so simple and accessible. That's a tremendous gift to the world that you're providing. And you alluded to a couple of things that are really exciting, one of which, like you said, is launching today. So tell people a little bit about how they can find you, what sort of programs they can get involved in. I mean, obviously there's the book and the journal, but you've expanded now. So what else is happening?
Yeah, everything supports the system, right? And supports you in becoming free. So we start Quantum Source Code online program today, and you can come into that anytime from now until July 1st. And it's very exciting. We've got Activate Enlightenment 3-day live event in Marina del Rey in July, and truly the magic and miracles of being with us live and with a group of like-minded people where you'll meet, the rest of your soul family. It's pretty fantastic. And then we have we have this very special invitation only, 10-person only event in our home twice a year, which is called Soul Choice. And that's where we don't go through this system. We actually focus on what each person in the room needs in that moment. And the whole thing is geared to getting so free that we start to regenerate the entire system, and we cancel out any of the genes of stroke, heart disease, diabetes, whatever it is that is being handed down to you. We cut off that expression in your genes so you don't get those things. So it's pretty exciting. So if you go to thebiskinds.com, so that's THEBISKINDS, kinds, thebiskinds.com. If you go to the events page, all of this is laid out for you. And, if you want the book, the best, I'd love you to, I'd love everyone watching this to get the book, but I'd really love you also to get the free meditation. So if you go to codebreakerbook.com, then on there you can get access to the books, but you can also download 3 special meditations that I put down to already get you into that high frequency state. And as we say, please don't drive or operate heavy machinery when you're under the influence of this system, because, even though you won't be 0.05 or whatever it is here, you will be high.
We need to be grounded in our practical experience. That's how we get everywhere safely. So thank you so much for sharing the links, and I will make those available in the description for this episode as well. And hopefully people will follow that and take advantage of the meditations, and then proceed on to the book and whatever else they're led to with you. You've been an amazing guest, Sandra. Thank you so much for the gift that you've provided to the world and being so willing to share your system and your story. It's really people like you that are finding the keys to unlocking the doors that are helping the masses. And that's what it's really about why we're here. And you embody and bring that forward. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Well, you know what? It's just been an absolute pleasure being on the Spiritual Handyman show and seeing your absolutely divine face on the other side of this camera. I have really enjoyed myself, and I'm very happy to, come on at any time.
Oh, fabulous.
You're a dream host.
Oh, thank you so much. You make it really easy, and I appreciate your kind words. So, folks, that's going to conclude our episode of The Spiritual Handyman. Please reach out and get that book, The Codebreaker. You can go to codebreakerbooks.com and find out what your next steps are. And, you can apply those 4 questions right away. Wow, talk about transformational ease right there. That's really great stuff. So thank you again, Sandra, for your participation on the show and being such a wonderful guest. And thank you, everybody, for watching and participating. Remember that the Spiritual Handyman is all about putting spiritual tools into the hands of people that need them. Please take an opportunity to comment, like, subscribe, get involved in the community, expand the information and how it gets out there. Share it with your friends, pass it along. Sandra, once again, thank you so much for your participation today and being such an amazing guest. And we'll reach out, absolutely, and reach out to you again in the future. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. See you next episode.
Thanks.
The Spiritual Handyman, bringing spiritual tools to the hands of the people who need them. Sponsored by the Eagle Heart Foundation. The Eagle Heart Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that brings charitable contributions and educational enhancements to the people. So how can you be a part of the Spiritual Handyman and the Eagle Heart Foundation? The Triple Win Situation. This book was written by Granddaughter Crow, and half of the proceeds go to the Eagle Heart Foundation, which in turn sponsors the Spiritual Handyman. How to get it one? It's on Amazon and Kindle for only $9.99. So we are here to bring tools to you. Thank you so much, Spiritual Handyman. We believe in what you do.